Hey, what's going on, everyone, and welcome to the Deceptilab. This your boy Freeze coming in with the weekly live stream. And today, obviously, there was some pretty big news earlier in the week. Uh, and know most of you probably saw it on Discord, or if you're just coming in from Waz's stream, probably talked about it there a little bit. But so the 5-star Titan event is canceled, and so we're going to talk about that. I think it's going to have a little bit of a different impact than people think that it's going to have. So I want to talk about that a little bit, and honestly, just talk about Titans in general. Just because I had a lot of conversations with people this week regarding the event, and I want to talk about the event schedule that we were talking about last week. We were trying to passively build it this week. Um, well, we were passively building it last week. This week we got it built for real, and it is turned into Space Ape. So I want to show you guys what the final version of that looked like. And I actually forgot to pull it up, so let me go into my drive and pull that up while we in here talking. But overall, not really a whole lot going on here in TFEW this week, so we're gonna make it work. So let me go find that real quick. Okay, cool, I got it. But yeah, man. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get it started, and we'll start off with this week's newsletter. For the event, it's called A Step Further. So let's see what we got. Let me pull that up so I can actually read this thing. Alright, so it's week one, and was week one of the season, not the saga. Alright, so this week's event is called A Step Further, and some of the prizes you get up to 5,000 prime shards, 2.5k 4-star shards, 7.5k 3-star, 60k premium shards, 300k regular spark, 300k combiner spark, 300k combat spark. So, and 20 mil of each one of your resources of energon and alloy. So overall pretty good, and some total shard chests. So it's actually shaping out to be a pretty decent event. 500k type. And there goes your tier charts for the totalizer. And I see a comment in the chat from Repost One saying I'm tired of prime shards. A lot of people. We actually going to talk about that, and we'll talk about that closer to when I start looking at the event schedule that I built. Um, there's a strategy I put around the prime shard events, and hopefully you guys like it. But keep in mind, and I always tell people, like every event isn't for everybody. Um, it's hard for me to complain about this though. Okay, like I'm looking at it, there's some prime shards in there, right? And then you got your basics, but you got 300k of each spark in there. You got resources, and anybody can always use those, and total shards. So I mean, overall, that's a pretty good event. They're talking about the crystals that they got in there. They have a percentage of. Yeah, that's for your total shards. So you get 25% odds at either 25 5-star shards, 100 4-star shards, 200 3-star shards, so 1.5k of your premium crystal shards. So all in all, not too bad. Regular regular event week, so you got your typical battle zones. And so just looking at the game updates and information, you got Callum, obviously is back with us. I talked to him a couple of times over the last week or so. And he's just really appreciative of all the feedback that's been coming in. I definitely know that that's one of those guys on the team who wants to make sure that we're actually heard. And so when I turned in my event schedule proposal. I actually turned it in directly to him, and then we discussed it a little tiny bit, but um, yeah, no, he definitely made sure that it got to where it needed to go, and it is currently up for review. I imagine it's probably going to be some small tweaks, but yeah, um, you gotta do something, man. And I'm gonna get through the newsletter first, because I got some feelings about how a lot of this stuff went over the last week. Um, I'm not really biting my tongue about it, so we'll talk about that in a bit. All right, so we got a new Cyber Pass. Pretty cool. They already told us who the skins were, so we got our Starscream and Rhinox skins, looking pretty cool. Actually, like I said last week, I actually like the Decepticon skin better this time. Might be a little bit partial since I'm a Starscream fan. Uh so we got week 5 is actually, as I said, is week 1 of the new season. Week 5 of the overall saga. And honestly, the proposal I made last week, and sorry I keep bumping my microphone. Um the proposal I made last week is honestly about this. It's about fixing this part of the schedule and making it longer. And it comes with some criticisms we'll talk about in a little bit, but overall, I think from an in-game standpoint, uh, I think it's the better way to go, and we'll talk about that. We don't know what's going to be next week. Obviously, week 6 was supposed to be the 5-star Titan event. Um, at 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 200K, most players weren't feeling that, understandably so. So now they got to find something to put in that space. Then you got the Easter event behind that, which will be individual, and then we will roll into Mayhem mode for the endurance event. Um, and I noticed last week that it changed back to just the regular 1.5 and 3.5 uh, event, 3.5 mil. Um, I know a couple of weeks before that, for for a few weeks leading up to that, they had it at 5 mil. Um, I'm gonna talk about that a little bit too, because I think that when somebody shows you their hand like that, I think you believe them, and I think that it's gonna kind of be inevitable that we have a larger endurance. And I took that into consideration when I was making my proposal. So we'll see how it goes. Make sure you check out all your content creators. Myself, Soldier, he's been pumping out a lot of content lately, and Sunstreak Awaza, who most of y'all just came from his stream. I was still working when his stream started, so I didn't get to watch it. I'll probably watch it in the morning and check it out just to see what he was talking about. I always like watching both of those guys' content. So, but make sure you check out all the unofficial creators as well. Many of them in the chat. If you got anything that you want to share, feel free to share your links in the chat. Community corner. Let's see what we got here. All right, we got Voth Bruticus with the Megatron here. Pretty cool. And then we got Alchemist 1992 with some artwork at there. Is that I can't tell. Is that supposed to be Drift? But yeah, cool artwork as always. And staff picks up there. So Carol is back, and Carol has Jazz as the his top bot. Like, assuming they're looking at the lore wise. But yeah, that's his favorite. That's a good one too. His Jazz is always so smooth, man. And say when you look at the lore, that's definitely one of my favorite characters as well. And then we got Space Ape doing their team stream next week, and that's all we got for the news. So let me take a look at the chat. Who is that? Yeah. All right. So I know Chris Harmon was in there first, my good friend, one of my moderators, one of my first members. Also, thanks for joining Chris. And he wants to remind you guys to like and subscribe to my content if you have not already. And then we got the homie CF, another one of my good friends, one of my members as well, fellow content creator. Does a little bit of everything. Thanks for joining again, buddy. We got the homie Lou Mega with us again. Thanks for joining, Lou. And we got Twilight Tears, aka David Lee, in here with us. Just changed his name on YouTube. Thanks for letting me know that, because I'd have been like, yo, who's that? But thanks for joining. Volcanicus69 is with us again. Thanks for joining. The homie Skinny33 is with us. Thanks for joining, Skinny, my alliance mate, or my alliance family mate. Let's see, we got Blade 19, one of my good friends and members. And just like I was saying, just came back from Waz's stream. Thanks for sticking with us. I know the Thursdays can be kind of tough, man, with a lot with both major creators talking at the same time or talking on the same day. So I appreciate y'all for rocking with me like that. Skinny reminded me that I need to go change out my my slideshows. I will definitely try to make an effort to do that this week. I ain't been doing a lot. Like I'm my wife on vacation, so I'm just here chilling, just me and the dog. So I need to work on some stuff around the house. Like I already mentioned, Repost One is in the chat. Thanks for joining Repost. Hey, Callum's in the. Speak of the devil, Callum is in the chat. Thanks for joining. Sunshrika Waza's down there as well. Thanks for joining Waza. He said he can tune in now because it's on Thursdays. Hey, nah, I appreciate it. Yeah, so that's what we got. If I missed anyone, don't be shy. Go in there and reach in there and give me a tag in the chat. Make sure I don't like missing shout outs for anyone. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit. I'm gonna start off talking about this Titan. So the Titan event was supposed to be next week, and it's 200K. And obviously, there was a lot of people who didn't like that. There's a lot of complaining on Discord, like I've told you guys last week. There was a lot of our alliance leaders, content creators, everybody kind of got together trying to build a plan to see what we needed to do to try to figure something out. And ideally, for the content, I'm actually going to pull up Tripticon here as this 4-star. So we had to put in a 5-star. So first off, you can already kind of see what the 5-star ability would look like. Now, they possibly, I want to say this is something they already had built in for a while now, so it probably wouldn't have taken them a whole lot of work for us to go test out the 5-star. We hadn't started testing it at all, but I know when they made the 4-star for a little while, like they had already built up the 5-star ability and stuff like that. Don't know if it was going to change anything like that, but that's what it would have looked like. And so a couple of days ago, I get up and uh, I'm tagged in a few messages saying that the event's canceled. And one of the things with the event being canceled was, well, first off, it started off a tad bit passive aggressive, because just like Hyro is basically like, now that we all can talk like adults, which I mean, honestly, he wasn't wrong. Like, when there's drama in this game, be honest with you, people start wilding a little bit. I get it. And so I probably would have took the same response. I wasn't even mad at him. But then, like, what tripped me out was how they said that the Titans for Tripticon Metroplex were going to be distributed now that we weren't having the event. And the response that we got was that it was going to go for sale in the store. And you know what actually really pissed me off? What kind of pissed me off is it was a lot of people that was just straight up celebrating. They're just like, man, we won. And I was like, we won what? What? So I was actually kind of curious because I was asking people, I was like, hey, how do you feel about it? And they was like, yeah, this is awesome. We won. And I'm not the kind of guy, I don't typically want to just run in, burst anybody's bubble. But I was like, has anybody seen the prices and stuff? As a matter of fact, that's what I'll do. I got the internet up. Let's go look at the store real quick. So, and I'll pull it up while I'm talking to you guys. But if anybody's seen the prices for some of the stuff that goes into the store, it's not the most it's not the most cost friendly place on the face of the planet the majority of the time. So for me, I I I I'll be honest with you. I got scared a little bit when they said that this was gonna be in the store. So I'm gonna go pull the store up real quick. Let's see. All right, so that's our Transformers Earth War store. So you got some of your common stuff in there. You got your Cyber Pass track. Cool, man. You actually get a little bit of extra web loyalty in there for you get a little bit of an early push. Cool. Sometimes it's better deals up there, especially when you go in the web store. This week you're gonna have your Combiner Gate Defensor and and Abominus. So and, that was one of the things that came out during that conversation when we were talking about the 5-star Titan. Cool, man. They even came in there a little while ago, and I already bought mines, so I'm not signed in right now. But the 5-star shard and the 5-star combat bundle, cool, man. But then you got stuff like this. So then and obviously this is new content. But you get the 5-star Tip Top, the 5-star Peacemaker, and I start looking at value for stuff, and I get it. It is a brand new, exclusive 5-star combat that we didn't get a chance to go compete for because last week's event was cut short, cut back down to 50K. The normal standard that we have, and because they usually just give you an opportunity to go for the 4-star. They were trying something different. Give you the 5-star binary bond stuff like that. And a lot of people actually like the combat, and that's cool, man. I was like, I'm glad that people like that. People in my alliance really love the combat. They were talking about using multiple versions of the combat. I don't think that highly of the combat, but um, $100 for the combat. And when you look at what you actually get, I think I could actually be logged in for that. No, I don't. I mean, you do get 100K. I said 100K, a million combat spark with it. So you can go put some level, majority of your levels on it. But it just screams to me, stuff like that, those exclusives just scream to me overpriced. Particularly for when you go look at a schedule that in 8 weeks it'll be available in the batch. And I know there's gonna be some lower level players that might not have it in the batch. Ooh, I did not mean to do that. Let me pull that back up. Um, but typically for myself, um, with the cyber pass and all the stuff that and I'm actually hitting the events for the combat shards and everything in the combat spark. Typically, I'm gonna have an opportunity every 8 weeks to go pull another combat. So for me, $100 for 8 weeks of exclusivity. Why do I keep doing that? I'm trying to find. As a matter of fact, let me go find my live chat. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. I'm trying to read the chat while I go look at all this stuff. But $100 for that level of exclusivity, it's just not it. Not to me. So there's gonna be some good stuff in there. You're gonna have some stuff in there for bundles. They had the Gears bundle in there, Quake bundle. But then you taking chances on stuff. So like for me, there have been a couple of times that I spent like $100 on a bundle to try to increase my odds and to walk away with nothing. I bought like binary bond one time, never bought it again because I just I didn't wind up walking away with any binary bond. Same thing with some of these G1s. And then so for me, I just like I'd rather just keep my money. I'm just efficient with my money like that. And that's why I play my events the way that I do, so on and so forth. They got different welcome packs in here, all the way up to $250. But I mean, even that, um, granted, it's good if you getting to start. The values, I'm gonna leave that up for a second. The values ain't always there, and since they made their external store, a lot of the stuff went up. So for me, when I go look at all this stuff collectively, uh, I feel like a lot of this stuff is overpriced. I mean, shit, some of this stuff. I mean, for virtual currency, I'm paying console, bro. Like 249.99. That's a actual console game with all the DLC. That's actually going to probably do more to help you for the game longer for content that you actually will keep. I don't want to get all the way into it. I'm not trying to tear the game down right now, but the truth is that's the prices we pay for stuff. So when you tell me that a piece of in-game content like this Titan is going to be in the store, no, it's a loss to me. It's 100% a loss to me, and I'm not calling it anything else other than that. Uh, Not with my own personal opinion. And so, it is what it is. Let me know in the chat what you think about the result of the Titan and the possibility of it just going in the store, nothing else. All right, so I see Chris in there chatting up with Callum. Oh, actually, hold on. I saw Razorhorn74 joined us again, so I didn't catch him earlier. So thanks for joining, Razorhorn. And then I see Chris talking to Callum, saying, "Nice to meet you. I'm one of your big spenders. When talking to various players, give me a shout. I want to be heard, my friend." Yeah, and Chris lets us know it's like, look, man, you keeping the game running. Um, and this is the conversations that him and I have. You keep the game running when you go spend like that. And it does come with a certain amount of opinion, I would imagine. So, uh, definitely. All right. So Waza says we didn't win. We got stalemated. Um, yeah. I mean, and a lot of that comes from the tactics that we were using. And I say I know when you and I talked Waza in the little group chat that we had. Um, at that point a lot of the fight had already been fought, and to be honest, some of it was the wrong fight. And I think the biggest thing is, and I'm gonna go back to the newsletter for a second so you can see what we had, because a lot of the problem really came in with the timing. So the timing there, when you go look at that's a week 6 event, and then 2 weeks later you got an endurance bot coming out. You don't know anything about the endurance bot at this point. I imagine we know something soon. I'm not complaining. But when you go see that schedule and it tells you you're going to have a 200K event, and then 2 weeks later you're going to have endurance, obviously that's going to rub some people the wrong way. But then we started digging more into the layers. So I started talking to a lot of people over the course of the week. And a lot of people was like, look, I'm not doing 200K for any event. I don't care what content it is. Now, I'm not in that particular group. The 200K, I was like, man, that's kind of high. More likely than not, I probably would have did 200K. And the reason for it is this. when I go look at just different events, when I go look at these events, one of the things that I'm going to be looking at is how the frequency of the event. And to be honest with you, with a Titan event, you probably only going you might have one a year, if that. So I was like, okay, well I'll just I'll take that one on the chin. I'll go out and I'll just go ahead and just do Titan event. You know, not a problem. But that is not the story. Most people were saying 200 was way too much, and they were not about it. And I understand that too, because what we have now is we got to the point where we were doing the exact same events we had been doing for, I want to say, Mayhem been around what, 7, 8 months, something like that. And everybody got used to it, so we spent too much time just getting used to that. And there are consequences that come with that as well. So now when you try to go make the events larger, and I actually like some of the schedule. They started adding some extra stuff, and I said, hey, they started adding. Now you were getting to the point where they were adding binary bond. Now you're getting to the point when you're starting to add some of the prizes that we didn't have. Uh, and we're gonna talk about it a little bit more in a little bit. All right, and I said I was gonna read through some of these comments. I'm gonna continue reading through the comments. So let's see. All right, so Callum sent the invite to Chris to come hit him up. Cool. Blade 19 says it was a loss. What you what you're going to spend to get us in the store would have been the same to complete the event, but now you're just not going to get any other prizes with it. And so that was the problem that a lot of people have with a lot of people had that problem when they were leveling their bots and stuff last week. And even though technically the event still went up to 200k, we lost out on the opportunity for the prizes. I actually had a lot of people that were just arguing with me back and forth about why the event needed to be larger. And I was like, look, man, I agree. I would have loved to have the event been large, and it's individual. If you hit it, you hit it. But that's not necessarily the case with the Titan. Like if you miss out on the Titan, you're going to be at a disadvantage. And so for me, this it's a little bit more delicate of a situation. I think that the little committee that was trying to work something out with Space 8, one of the things they were looking at was trying to get it down to at least 150k. Well, I mean, let me know in the chat, what do you think is the most that you're willing to put up for an event in Mayhem mode? So Twilight says, wouldn't be surprised if it's $200. I wouldn't be surprised by that either. Volcanicus said it might be more than that. I'd be surprised by that if it's more than that. But we'll see. I see the homemade tracks in there. One of my good friends and members. Thanks for joining the chat. It says who wants to spend $100 on a bot. Yeah, nah, and it says a lot of stuff is going up in the store. Yeah, and so now one thing I will say is this: when they first started putting bots and everything in the store, and we had mayhem mode, I was talking to Dale one day, and Dale asked me, he's like, "Hey, how much do you spend on this to get to this point?" And I said, endurance spent. I say honestly with you, actually that might have been before. That might have been before mayhem, because at that point I was probably spending about 60 bucks. Um, just with some of the strategies that I use. But when the mayhem mode came around, I said I'm probably getting closer to probably like 40 bucks, and that's just for me to do it comfortably, still spend my weekend, out doing whatever I want to do, whether it be drinking and whether it be out there, just messing around. And so one of the things that I would do is like I would start off on Friday, before work even start, and I just hammer out all my coins, and that's like 23K by itself, 23, 24K by itself, just by putting the $40 bundle in and then doing all that. So when it works out that way, when you go do endurance, now you about a quarter of the way done, well, a little more than a quarter of the way done off rip. But then, you know, um, and I think, and that's one of the points that got me. A lot of people just aren't patient enough with mayhem mode. Now I made a video about it. It's actually uh, one of the thumbnails on my page for people to actually go in there and just look at the mayhem mode strategy. I hadn't changed the strategy. Once I go use all my coins, and I actually go onto the battlefield and run some battles because I ain't played no Transformers this whole time. But one of the things that I'll do is I'll come into a zone. Most of the time I'm actually doing zone 17, shit like that. So I'll come into zone 17, and I know a lot of people scared to do that, but like for me, a lot of times all I'll do is I'll take God, Neptune, Ruination, and I'll just make sure I get the buildings down first. So this one is actually not too bad. Um, compared to the actual live server. I'm on a test server right now, and I don't know how this is going to be after any potential changes to Ruination and God Neptune. One thing I do know is this: before I do anything, because I don't want to lose out in total, I'll go out and clear as much as I can right out the gate. And if I'm in a position to, I'll take out that shield generator, and I'll just do that through the whole event. And the thing is, the combiners, with it having a longer timer than it did now. I always find it interesting that that timer increased after we got mayhem mode, just because with mayhem mode you might end up actually using you might actually wind up using your combiner less if you're playing it patient. Now for me, all of my Z Energon. Now, of course, I would come back down there and clear up the end. Um, but you can see it's plenty of time left. Those holograms actually stay up for quite a bit of time. It's kind of easy to just go in there and drop a bot, go use God Neptune Ruination, and I'll just my ore 13 to go towards that. Hey, and I see Autobot Phil dropped in. Thanks for joining, buddy. And I'm looking at the chat and I'm seeing some of what people say is reasonable, for a larger event. So Blade 19 said that it'd be 125K is reasonable. Okay, cool. CF says like 100 to 125K. Dark Terror says he ain't going for no Titan no time soon. He too weak, and that's the part of the thing. I think when they make certain content like the 5-star Titan, I think honestly they are making that just that's one of those things that they're making it for top players that go in there and got lots of bots and can clear out a lot of the events. Like that's the audience. I think they making that as something that you're gonna use in more 100%. But what I genuinely don't like is how long they wait for the lower tiers to actually go get this stuff. Uh, I've seen stuff take like upwards of a year, and then you don't know how many 5-star shards it's going to take. Oh, and everything basically takes 5-star shards now, and I don't know. I just wish it was like they took a different currency because what I hate is like I got my last piece for I got my last piece for Predaking the other day. Need 5-star shards for that. I just used the 5-star shards to get the bot. Still need more 5-star shards. I'm like, it's combining. Why I need that shit? But yeah, it's one of those things that I just kind of look at. So when I look at everything, so like, and I say all of this, and I'm sound like I'm rambling off, but I'm actually really going somewhere with this. And where I'm going with this is when I looked at this stuff, I looked at I kind of made a game in its entirety when I was in there making my proposal, and I think it came up pretty good. I think most of the stuff is starting to line up. I see Waza said 125K or 150 pound is fair. Yeah, so we got a couple people in there talking about some of the values for this stuff. Now, for me, one of the things I consider I was talking about earlier when Dale was first asking me about how much I spend for this stuff, and I was like, well, I think better than asking people what they spend on the event, which I mean, it is a fair point because they were trying to set the prices for the stores. A lot of people overpay for events, and that's just the truth. A lot of people will overpay for. Oh, that's right. I don't got that on the test server, so I'm gonna actually go back into the store. Actually, I took the store down, but I was running into a bunch of people that were saying that for when they went for the Titan, or when they were thinking about going for the Titan, they were saying like 200K cost them like $200, and I was like, nah, you're lying. Like I was like, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, yeah, I was very very cavalier about it. I was like, no, this shouldn't cost you that. But what a lot of people is like that a lot of people like to rush through stuff, and so when I started asking more questions, and then you got some guys. It was like, hey, I work through the weekend. I got to get through it as fast as I can. Okay, cool. And it sucks. I used to work weekends and try to play this game, and it's not fun. You got to try to squeeze in when you can. Um, but for everybody that's just usually hammers out the larger events, one of the things I started looking at was I started looking at what's the absolute least that you can spend to get through this, and for me, instantly I saw that for like current state like endurance events, you can get through that with like $20 bare minimum. I like to be comfortable with 40. There's usually a point where you can get through with some persistent effort, and then there's another dollar amount that you can get through. So that $40 is gonna get through. It's not gonna take you a lot of effort. I'll be done with that in a couple of hours, or I'll be done with the bulk of the workload in a few hours, and then I'll come back. I'll do 3 battles. I don't need to do the whole 5 because I want to keep regenning and not having to use a bunch of coins. And that's my method, and it works. I say, I was talking to Soldier the other day, and he's like one of the guys up there that is, you know, I mean, he plays all the large events and he plays them really well, and he usually has really high scores, and he even uses the same method that I use. And I see Berserk joined the chat. Thanks for joining Berserk. So yeah, and I still see people talking in the chat, and I say, CF had a comment that says, or we could do some month-long events like other games have done. And I said we could do that. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and pull up this chart. Let me go get it up on the screen real quick. And it's gonna be. I'm actually gonna put the link to this for those who haven't seen it into the chat. I mean, not into the chat, but I'll put it into. Well, yeah, I probably could put it into the chat. Well, I could if I was logged into the chat. So let's work our way through that first. So that way, because I know a lot of times I'll go make a chart, and somebody will be like, "Oh man, that's too small." So I'll get it in there. Just give me a moment. Oh yeah, and I actually need to. That's actually my channel page. So I'm gonna jump into the live chat. I don't know why. All right, so let's see. All right, that's not working. All right, so I'll wind up. I'm gonna put it into. My chat button is not working. All right, so I'm gonna do this. I'll move that, and I'll go into my studio. But yeah, I know a lot of times when I go make a chart like that, and everybody's like, "Hey, it's too small to try to see it," because most people are watching this stuff on their phone. So I actually want to put it into the chat, and I also will go wind up making a comment for it later and putting it in that chat as well. All right, now it's in the chat. So if anybody wants to blow it up, you can. And I probably should take my head out of here so everybody can see. So I will do that. Where? All right, so basically what I did, and I'll start at the top of the saga. This is what I propose, and I probably should slide it over a little bit so everyone can see. And we'll start right there at week 1. So at week 1, uh, one of the things, and I actually had it a different way before. I had it to have that as a 25K individual totalizer. When I was talking with my alliance, actually, they were the ones that were saying, "Hey, you should bring that down to 10K. Keep it nice and easy for all of the players when they are, anytime the players come back from a larger event." So obviously, with this being a 12-week saga, our large events will be on week 4, week 8, and week 12. So that means on week 1, and I'm gonna slide it back over a little bit so you can actually see the weeks. So weeks 1, 5, and 9 all will basically be the same. Will be, and we were talking earlier about these prime shards. One of the things that I was looking at with the prime shards was that with prime shards, everybody doesn't want them. And I know we were looking at a couple of people in the chat earlier saying, "I'm tired of prime shards." And typically, the people that are tired of prime shards is because they already got all of them. They got all the prime cores, with the exception of whichever one, the Nexus one, not Nexus, but Alpha Trion that's left on defense. That you know, I imagine I'll probably come out with HQ19. Don't quote me on it. Callum in the chat, ask him. But yeah, that's the last remaining one that anybody actually needs. So because of that, people get tired of prime core shards. So here's a perfect opportunity that I imagine a lot of top players, they either just kind of get through the 40 or 50 battles it takes to get to the end of the 10K, or they just sit it out because they just played a long event and they need some rest. Either way, it's cool, but this gives some of the lower levels and mid tier players an opportunity to just get some resources, get some XP, get their prime shards and stuff like that. And so yeah, 10K, nice, something light, something completable for the smaller guys on weeks 1, 5, and 9. So I kind of doubled down on that. On week 2, I kind of doubled down on the individual with events with the 25K. I want to start getting class crystals and class shards, especially now with us having all 5 ranks involved. I think one thing I like about class shards and class crystals is that you're just getting you're just getting that one class, and so it makes it smaller as compared to just collecting and collecting. Nobody's ever gonna get enough of those shards like that, and enough of those those character shards and anything like that. And you still probably won't with the class shards, but I think if you use a combination of those bots and like just bot specific bundles or anything like that, then you probably could work down on how many 5-star shards you got to use to go get down to some of your ranks. I mean, it's probably still going to be improbable, but we'll come to that later on how we address the character ranks. All right, so um, in that case, I did 25k. Then we got our 500k to 750k, and I want each of those to be like a different type of spark. So in the first one we do for combining spark, everybody's always complaining about not getting enough of the specific type of spark they want. I always want combat spark. Um, and I want more than one opportunity, especially if the saga is 12 weeks long, to get that spark. So you're gonna do a combiner one, and then when you swing back around later on, in week 10, you'd be doing one for more combat shards. Now, I had to be careful to separate that from the week 4 one. That's why I did another combat spark event in week 10. Just so it makes it perfectly even. It'll always be exactly 6 weeks in between combat spark events. What I don't want to do is make the events longer or the saga longer, and it takes you longer to go get each type of spark. Hey, I see Candyman joined the chat. Thanks for joining. And so that's my thought process behind that. So then we start looking at the week 4, the Mayhem Individual Totalizer, and that's your combat week, just like we have now. The key difference is that I wanted to add some more prizes in there, so I actually pushed it up to 150k, but I wanted to keep the prizes a little bit lower. Now, 50k is still going to be your 4-star under my plan. 75k. Now I had beat Binary Bond at 100k, and some folks reminded me that we did have an event before where Binary Bond was actually down at 75k, and I think that was more when they first came out, and we will have been used to 50k events, and they say, well, we'll give you 25k more and we can give you a Binary Bond. I don't think I If I remember correctly, I don't think we saw that again since. So I moved the Binary Bond down from 100k down to 75k. I put the 5-star at 100k, which I think is a decent amount of effort uh, for the combat, and I would like that because my beef with the game has always been this. My beef with the game has always been that you do as much work if you pay and you still pay. Now, when you go buy it directly out of the shop, then people's complaint becomes that, well, you're getting the content, but you're not getting any of the other stuff that comes with it from the event. Which, fair point, but it's just like, hey, it gives you an option. Say if you're the guy that has to work that weekend, it gives you the option to buy. That's why I want that to be reasonably priced. All right, Matt Mardigan says, I don't really care. We get the BBE at 75k in the Forge event. Yeah, nah, that's what I'm saying. And when people reminded me of that, then I was like, cool, man. Like, we can do it like that. I was thinking about it like it was still going to be a little bit more in-game content. That we do need to start easing into, the mainstream a little bit more. But I feel like we got to go above 50k so that we can go get an event where you can go get the 5-star just like you have for regular bots, and then oh and then yeah, I and then I put in some random BBE chests, so you might continue to try to go on for opportunity at those chests. That part I'm not sold on. Um, I'd even be willing if people wanted to do leaderboard, people that like to compete, do leaderboard. I'd even be willing to do that, but I'm not going for it. But if somebody else want to go for it, they can, and then you can get more binary bonds. All right, so Berserk says no way freeze upside down. He says stick to 75k, stick to 70k 5-star. binary bond just spread around. And yeah, we could do that. And I did actually try to consider, um, I mean, this is a business. I think that people go strategic because, realistically speaking, if I had to go to 100K to go get the 5-star bot, I most likely in that event do, realistically speaking, and with full effort using all 3 days, I probably still could do that for like 40 or $50. To do it comfortably, I probably spend about 60. I think people just spend overspending on the events, and so um, I try to base everything off the absolute bare minimum you would have to spend. So let's see. So I was looking at that, and then I was also looking at. So that's the big one. That's the week 4 event. I already talked about the week 6. I already talked about the week 7. I tried to put like a total spark in there because spark is actually in events every week. So in week 7, I did 500 to 750K, and then followed that up by another 25K individual. I actually wanted to do all the individuals spaced out evenly for the 25Ks, but the 25Ks they actually would have made three. They would have made 3 individual events in 3 straight weeks, and I don't think that would be good for the economy. Yeah, and I definitely agree with what Berserk is saying. He said try to get the cost down, period, and then get more players who do spend smaller amounts of money. And I agree with that. I think at some point, I think there's a balancing point where there is a level of exclusivity that comes with some of this stuff, and I think some people are paying for that. Um, as far as I agree with you 100% that if you can get more players, and we saw that early in with mayhem mode, like once people learned how they could just spend like $20 or something like that. um you know once they got to that point, then I was like, cool, I'm pretty content with that. But one thing that I've noticed in talking to people through this whole time is there's a lot of completionists out there, and so there's a lot of people who wanted to, it's like we have to complete everything. And realistically speaking, this thing, when especially now that we do more individual events, um, you could do 100K for the combat, and then call it a weekend. My goal here was to try to make it so we only had like one major spending event per month, or every 4 weeks, I should say, which is cool because like even if you were putting some money aside, like I know a lot of times I'll put money on the side on my Cash App card, and I'll be like, hey, that's what I'm using for the event. And so, and I'm not a big time event guy, but I do want the game to have a sustainable enough economy that they actually make money. And with mayhem mode, I'm gonna be honest with you, mayhem mode, it has to it has to be taking away some money because I mean, if there are a lot of efficient event players like myself, so for me, uh, the only two big things left on here is the endurance event. The endurance event, I actually pushed that up to 5 mil, but I wanted to, for people that wanted to push harder. If you can get 40 guys and want to push hard, and worth it might be worth doing the individual endurance every now and again. But that's at 5 mil, that's 125K per person, and you walk out of there with a major rank, and you'll walk out of there with a general rank if you complete the event. So I think that'll be cool. Now that ranks are out for major and general, I think you got to make a way to make them accessible to everyone. Um, and but still, it should come at some cost. So I pushed the endurance up. I mean, and it was already something that was in the. It was already something that was in the newsletter like 2 or 3 weeks ago, anyway. So it'll probably happen like that regardless. And that's just my opinion. That once somebody shows you their hand, I'm gonna believe that you got something in your hand. So, and then I got my wild card event. So I started coming up with some ideas for wild card events. And one of the things that I put in there, I just started putting different kind of stuff. Now for the Titan event, I tried to work that Titan event down from 200k to 150k, and then you know, but these are events that just we don't get on the regular basis. So like my goal here was to try to keep us from like kind of like the situation we just ran into. Hey, you got endurance coming up on week 8. Well, let's just throw the Titan event in on week 6. That's always going to happen in an 8 weeks schedule. So if we did the 5-star Titan event at 150k, you would get some more people in there. I think it's just going to be more of a top end player event. You make it pretty nice. Legacy bots. We hadn't. I was just looking at the chat because they're still working on Cyclone and some Warpath. Uh, that chat started, and I know the backstory behind it. The backstory is, they wanted to make sure that they had everything set up with the new studio, and they didn't want to make a bunch of additional content um, without us having a home for the game. So it took some time, but we're starting to work out ideas for the next legacy bot. But it's been 7 months, and that's just the reality of it. We started first talking about Cyclonus on September 15th or 16th. So with that being said, they're not consistent enough with the legacy bot. So maybe that's an event that can go in there. Maybe you can just do like old batches where you can get enough shards to get a 5-star bot or 5-star combat bot, or just do like a rank event or something like that where you can have opportunities to earn ranks and do that at like 125k or something. You can earn both of those ranks. So just something to kind of shake things up. You never really would know what you were gonna get for that wild card event. Um, but that's kind of where I was coming from. And so let me look at the. Actually, let me go over to the chat. All right, so track says based on 8 math, BBE is worth legacy bot. Oh wait, actually, I already read that one. All right, so Twilight says I think 75 rather than 70k, and BBE at 100k with a BBE chest in between. That's originally how I had it, and I had a lot of people. I actually had more than one people. So I probably talked to maybe about a total of 500 different players over the course of this week. Um, I didn't have a lot of them go make that specific comment to tell me to change it to the way that I did, but I had at least 15 tell me that I needed to change it and make the BBE at 75. And so that's the reason why I moved it. I actually had it exactly the way that Twilight was saying it at first. So Track says, yeah, Mayhem Mode is taking money away because guys like, the two of us use the absolute least that we need. Some still spend the same amount to get done early and level bots. Most of the people that are getting done early, they're spending more because of the 15 fuel cells. And so Berserk says, is that all high level play? Oh, yeah, so he was having a conversation with Berserk. And so BBE is the only content they don't have. I mean, for a lot of high end players, yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of batches and stuff that me personally that I skipped But yeah, like a lot of players that have been doing this for a lot of time. Like I got a late start in this game just from I got a late start just from not always playing in competitive alliances, and then that's when I went to, I went to Darkness Family and I managed events there, and then later on I went to the Horde, and then everything really really took off when I went to the Horde. Um, just as a family, but now obviously in main Horde. Um, but yeah, like way back before then, I wasn't, completing every event and anything like that. So uh, that kind of set me back because I'm not gonna go spend like huge amounts of money up there on the events or whatever. Like I said, most I'll spend on an event is probably gonna be about $60, and that will be a very very extreme circumstance. I'll probably do that like once a year. Other than that, I don't spend no more than like 50. Um, yeah, so I see the comment that 15 fuel cell risk is real. You lose that temptation to recharge is more present, but really should be about lower level players trying more, not elite players taking it easy. Yeah, I can agree with that. And there go Decepticon. But all right, guys, I think I'm actually gonna call it a night anyway. If you didn't get your comments in about the proposal, about anything that I'm saying tonight, by all means, um, leave me a comment. I try to answer the comments. I might not get to you as fast as I would like to, but I typically always respond to comments. So, um, you know, let me know what you think, and I will see you guys next week, and I'll see you on the battlefield. Freezy is out.